right, so today we're going to talk about the idea of class in fashion and why much of art is boring. And a lot of times it has to do with the interpretation of art because modern era meaning very popular pop culture of the West, doesn't look beyond the surface. And then when they try to create shows, TV shows, movies, trying to tackle these more complex ideas, it often fails because the popular Western culture does not allow for interpretations. Now, there are a lot of video of, I guess, movies and films out there. I try to utilize Greek mythology and these concepts and ideas in films, but it's hard for them to do because it lacks the interpretation. And also, we can look at fashion. Fashion is very easy to see that the geniuses are really gone from the avant garde and the sort of recycling of the same thing over and over again. Um, so I guess I would say 1920s era, we have a half public, half private ideal of the muses. And these muses usually are in forms of people manifested on earth. And usually their work is to, sometimes they put out shows and, theater to the common people, but mostly for people in higher places, kind of like astrology. It's not just pretty music. I will say Mozart broke the mold when it comes to the ideal of a genius state or a muse state in order to play the music. A lot of people will try. Most all Westerners just try to just play the pieces as he would versus putting yourself in a particular state. High level players do tend to put themselves in a particular state whenever they play, because I tell you, whenever you start listening to music and you get into different states, you hear the music differently. Period. I don't care what anyone says. So when someone says it's a hard piece to play, it's probably because you need to let go of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 scales. Okay? That's why. They don't talk about this when it comes to houses. There's a house, which is your public house and your private house, craftsmanships and guilds, and they hold the pieces of the puzzle. All of your stuff comes from Asia and Africa and whatever you want to call it, because it actually had different names, these particular places. And you will find set places still in like Portugal and other places that still keep their craftsmanships. While the far west, which is the US, if these people have this information, they're not providing it to the public. One of the reasons why they have issues with Japan is because Japan still has a private and public culture. They get the public culture, which is just pop culture. So a lot of them will go over there thinking that they're developing friendships and connecting with people, only to find out that that is just a surface level of their particular culture. And not all the people in that culture get to experience other heightened or hidden cultures, like geishas. Geishas are right there in between. And there's a reason why they are like that. There's a reason why. There are other sectors or whatever groups of people, like the women of the nail, who would go into cafes. It's not Japan, but different other places are very similar, where you have these women who are very artistic and well trained and got paid for that without doing what work they think that they were trying to do. Basically categorize them into courtesans. Well, basically they don't even give them labels of courtesans. Courtesans are something else. Basically, either wife, you working as a milkmaid somewhere, you're doing something dutiful, or your wife. That's it. There is no in between as far as modern society, and they carry that stuff on still today. A lot of people will try to go into exoticism and all this other stuff to go on too, because they have no understanding. I won't even say training, no understanding of reality past the black and white and the 1, 2, 3. Okay, I talk about the muses. I talk about the nuns a lot, like people who know who are either a nun in a religion or none in the opposite polarity of religion. They either for consumerism or they didn't say capitalism, and they don't even know what capitalism truly is, like the actual definition of it. Americans have never achieved capitalism. To capitalize on something has never been achieved in the market, ever. And I will not go into that. But it does affect fashion. So anyway, there's private and public. And the reason why royalty always stays around these people is because they are the channels and the muses for this particular energy. And it's all art, science, math, all together, right? That's why you have, I like to call him Coltrane, but it's Coltrane. His Matrix, and he's not, they don't put him in the classical era. I put him in the classical era because he uses these particular methods, and you can literally use his methods and not know it. You do not need to be able to write this down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You only need to access it and use it. Okay. So anyway, what else was I going to say? So that's the basis of it. That's why everything's really boring. That's why everything's a copy of a copy. It looks really pretty, but there's no energy. Sometimes during like the 90s or 80s, you will get a surge of what I call an electricity, almost like lightning coming down, manifesting through certain designers. And if you are aware of Dior, you'll understand that that's one of the houses that had that particular energy. And there's a reason why his particular work, and you know what I'm talking about, his particular work looks like that. Moving on. So, but I will say before I move on, that's the difference between a house and these brands that pop up. With houses, you have either you have a family or you have a kinship, and a kinship usually has to do with an initiation and an agreement. That means whenever you break your ties to these people, you go through a particular process. And if you're going to break ties, it has to be a very good reason. You don't lay people off and on. You don't give up your craftsmanship. You don't give up the people that are doing the work for you. If you're doing something or excusing something from someone, you have to make sure that you're making the right decision. You have to watch yourself. And that's one of the reasons why couture, more like haute couture is more of a business agreement. We have a set amount of craftsmen, people who do this particular methods. In order to support that, one thing what the French will do, they will put some money behind it. You have to do so many shows and you have to hire so many people. And there's a reason why they do that. And unfortunately, they do have the sweatshop thing going on where they will import people in to work under these houses in these locations because of the cycle, which is the cycle of this particular market, which what people think is capitalism, but it's not. It's something else. Moving on, because I'm not going into that theory today. So you're just getting like a really nice initiation into the house of muses, which is my muses, which we're going to teach. Okay, so this is Mozart formula. You can look into it, group theory, etc., etc. We're going to go into the next thing we're going to go into is the concept of art and what it represents. And a lot of time you'll see fashion or to fashion, or I like the French word, which is mode, which I think is a more appropriate version, especially for the West. I mean, to fashion. To me, to fashion a style, to fashion a look, to fashion a message. And a lot of times you can fashion an ideal, an icon, a conception through fashion, which can be expressed through mathematics, which is the sewing or putting things up on the body. You use a lot of math. It doesn't have to be German style, where you use a lot of calculations. It can literally be put onto the body and marked up. That is still mathematics because you're using fabric to form and to get the contours of the body. You're free. You can do whatever you need to do. It's the result that's the end. You do have to have some awareness of what you're doing. That's great, but it begins to break apart when you get outside of that. So math breaks apart when you get into the avant-garde, just like in you have dark matter and dark energy. I mean, things that exist outside of what you can computationally measure and what you can see within a particular light spectrum. Okay? So when they say, when you're looking at a piece, it means something. When they say I'm going to decode a particular art piece, there's a reason why they're saying that. If they say that within the Renaissance, there was a painting that really depicts the constellations, they're probably telling you the truth. If they say that Shakespeare has cryptography in it, Absolutely, why not? That's part of it. That's part of being a genius, and that's part of creating and fashioning a work that's more than just what you see on the page. Okay? So, just saying that. With that, the basis of the computer system that we have today, which are ciphers, and mostly all Western math is a cipher because it's very basic, and I won't get into it. There's another channel where I break this down, but it's very basic. If you really look at it, you're only adding something and subtracting something, and then there are cycles. Cycles is the completion. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you go backwards, which is the opposite. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. It's not complicated. It's the order of operation of what you do something in, right? That's where you get into ciphers. The order of operation. You must simplify this before you do this. You must multiply this before you divide. Those are systems, and so are ciphers. Okay, and this is Bell Labs. Someone from Bell Labs breaking this particular concept down. And I won't get into like the Turing thing or anything else like that. I'll maybe do another video if that needs to be applied. But there's a concept, and the reason why we connect these things all together, fashion and everything else all together, is because there's something called the pure math movement. And the pure math movement is them trying to figure out what comes out of nothing. And there's a lot of convolutedness about like sets. How does 3 manifest from 2? And I'm putting it through the ringer. But you'll hear them refer back to Descartes. You hear them refer back to the letters of Descartes, discussing geometry and discussing different concepts of math, okay, which is about shape and form, which goes back to the basically us. And then the medium of that, which is the expression of genius, which is math, and beauty and concepts. The most important thing is, how does one come from an animal state into something magnificent? And you'll see them talk about going to the angel state and then to DS, which is the God state, going back down to the human, etc., etc. Okay, that's the basis of this. Nothing comes from a lab. Math, medicine, art all come from a cult. There's nothing else. That's where everything comes from. I guess they ran out of it, so then they probably have to come back to it. And that's probably why you're seeing people go towards AGI. I don't know if they know that or not. Some of them probably do know it. Some of them probably don't know that they're going back to that. But that's basically where you're getting into the realm of the unknown, or what you cannot see. But they're trying to put it into a particular square vector. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is the concept of the mind and why these concepts control how you think about your reality. I already did a video about perfume and the idea of this so-called Oriental perfume, which in America is just synthetics. It does not resemble the original at all. Okay? So anyway, but now we get into some nice things like perfumery. So in order to create a cord, like a rose accord, they don't really use real roses. They create a accord with various different other aromas, and this is one of them, in order to create things like linalool. And that is the concept of what a rose that you're smelling. So if you look at an older book and they're talking about how to make perfumes, or the maybe a book describing a scent, you are not experiencing the same scent. And one of the reasons why is because rose is really expensive, and you don't get a lot of the essences from even like 1,000 roses, right? So it would be so expensive, and the only people that would be able to wear this scent is the people that grow the roses, which is of course in the Middle East somewhere. So they would have real stuff, real roses. But in order to mass produce it, see how it connects right back to this particular cycle and the perception of your reality? In order to produce it, it would be really astronomical. People will get mad about $300 perfume that has some sort of natural, I call them essences in it, but to get the real thing, it would probably cost you 1,000, okay, if not more. But it's good to examine it. It's good to examine the synthetics, aroma chemicals, essential oils, the fact that an accord, which is to make a rose or to make, what's another one that people like to, that's not actually an essence from a plant, but is maybe an idea, like milk, like a milk accord. You have to make that, and you use the different materials available in order to create it. Just as you would with music, you make an accord based on several keys, and it's not just the keys, it's the length of the key and how it's played, which goes back to Mozart and goes back to jazz, John Coltrane. Okay. Absolute perfume. So if you see something that says absolute perfumes, know the percentages and the concentration. You can have a discussion with them about it. Now, and here's where the house thing comes in. A actual house you can have a conversation about it. The sales rep, you're not going to have a conversation about going to a local sales rep and walking in talking about, can you tell me about absolutes? Unless there's someone like myself who just loves it. They're not trained on that, which goes back to craftsmanship. And that's just basic. That's just like basic information and basic knowledge. And it goes back to also the connection of building resources and building relationships. Talk about kinship. And it's not really kinship, but like sales. Sales is very sacred. The reason why people often feel very good about selling you something for nothing is because you're getting something. You're trying to get something for nothing. You want a rose perfume, but you don't want to invest in the actual roses to get it. And you, of course, complain about the price because ultimately you don't want to face your situation of why you can't buy these things. Like why a rose is not grown, or why is it not just easy for you to jump on a plane and get what you want? Like, why is everything so separate? Then you have to face that. A lot of people don't want to face that, especially in the West, because we have a particular kind of culture and we don't have a lot of negotiation of cultures. And the reason why we don't have a negotiation cultures is this sort of ideal of this vast supermarket where you just go in and get something. On the flip side, you still have the car market. Not knowing information about something can put you at a disadvantage. But their solution is say, well, we just make everything out in the open and the same. And it doesn't work that way. Even for me to start my accessory line, dealing with just gold field stuff. If you don't know what you want at these markets, they're not great. Like, you can get swindled. So you have to come in knowing and having some sort of training, basic training to get to actually get the things that you need. And also I had to just start learning from my mistakes. And that's a process that kind of goes into game theory. Okay. So that is the theory of all this stuff. That's why you feel like people feel that stuff is the same. It's the same cycle. I don't understand this. I don't understand this. And, only conspiracy theory people can break down paintings. Everything is just what it is. And that is not true. Now, modern art is a little bit different. I guess they wanted people to start interpreting the abstract instead of utilizing particular figures, right? Because even this is kind of convoluted because this is a template that a person can use in order to create these kinds of figures. You want to go beyond that. And to do that, you really have to go into the indigenous. You have to go into like dream states, or your dream state could just be you creating some art and abstraction and seeing like really cool shapes and things in art and seeing different dimensions, because color is, light, etc., just like you would hear. But sorry about that. I know that's a car back there. modern concept. Like someone said, oh, to learn music would take me 15 years. This is a really hard piece. And I was just like, get away from me with that. I feel bad because I think that's the only way that they can understand it. But to me, that doesn't, like, when do you let that go? When do you start creating your own stuff? When do you start hearing the different textures and understand the different reality of music? Like, people just create music for music, and also apply these concepts too, and be free of it and come back. And you probably can come back to that piece once you let go. Like, stop holding on to this rigid way of thinking. But I think some people, that is the only access they have. So I'm not going to dog it out, because that would not be fair. I have to have some sensitivity and understand that. So this to someone would be a heightened level of art. For me, I might have like multiple layers of something. There might be 4 or 5 different type of figures in here. Different colors, upside down, sideways. um Hey, this is kind of one it's like that. So anyway, I don't know why they don't teach this. Whenever I was taught art, they didn't mention any of this stuff. Maybe in Europe or Portugal, you guys get trained differently. But over in the West, it's just like, it's just so boring. They talk about forms and lines. They do say about, like, whenever you go to things like churches or temples, it's supposed to be movement. So it's almost supposed to be a feeling or an idea, a concept, or event that's happening. Or whenever you go there, it's not supposed to be seen as stagnant or just stationary. So they do go into it, but they tiptoe around it. And again, I guess they want you to deal 30, 15 years just to find a book like this to tell you some concepts that maybe perhaps these people use. And also remember, these are plates. So this often comes from other ancient books, and then they produce more than one copy of this. And not everything scanned in is an original. More likely it's a copy. And I also go into things that, like, evidence, like provenance. If you don't know what provenance is, it's how they make a decision if something came from, if a piece came from Mozart, or if a piece came from the Renaissance era, etc., etc. These people there are some person that's responsible for archiving it, and there's someone that gives it to the archivist, and usually it's always a person and that has some pedigree, and they donate it to the museum. If you've ever seen the movie Lee Divorce, they donate it to the museum, or it is given to them through a university, hence the people who have pedigree that are over the university. You ever deal with a university system, academia, oh my God, I do not want to even get into that. So that is the basics of this. So with this video, and I'll put some links, you should get a good head start on really exploring art history and really exploring concepts of art and living art and everything else that goes along to it. What is harder is getting into a state to accept this. Music was one of the hardest things for me to accept, not to dance to it or listen to it, but like understand it. And also Western style is only within a certain length of, or only plays within a certain octave. But I'm hearing 4 or 5 different octaves, another beat in between that beat that I hear, and nobody else is hearing the beat. So they're trying to teach me something. So I really had to learn what I was actually hearing, and then I had to almost like tune in to what they were hearing. And I was like, oh, so that's what they mean when they say 5/4. 5/4. Take 5. Dun, 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 dun. There's 5th, but I hear something slightly different because I'm sensitive and I hear something else in the music. But anyway, this is the basics of a reference point, and hopefully I'll have more videos and clips and shorts that will point to cool concepts for your exploration. Until then, I'll see ya.